Welcome to Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast. Today, we have our host, Dr. Ramesh Ramachandra, founder and managing director of Talent Leadership Crucible. Dr. Ramesh is also an author and growth strategist who works with business leaders and senior executives. We're also pleased to have with us guest speaker and changemaker, Dr. Nisha Abubakar, who is the founder of Elevated Consultancy and Training and co-founder of World Women Tourism.
I'm so glad we're going to hear from Dr. Nisha today. Nisha is a campaigner for women's empowerment and gender equity in the tourism industry. She strongly believes that women can be innovative game changers and that they have immense capability to change the face of tourism for the better. As an international tourism consultant, Nisha has provided marketing and management counsel to tourism stakeholders to design and implement strategic plans for tourism development. In addition, LinkedIn has selected Nisha as one of Singapore's top 10 voices in gender equity. This is in line with 2022's International Women's Day. Congratulations and welcome, Nisha.
Thank you for your introduction. Very generous of you.
Nisha, we're so excited that you've agreed to be a changemaker guest speaker in our podcast series, Thriving in the Age of Disruption. We would love to hear your story, tips, and thoughts on gaining the essential mindset and skills needed to strive and thrive in today's age of disruption. We are going to explore the key themes around entrepreneurial mindset, crisis resilience, spirituality, and living a simple life. You and I have known of each other, and in the beginning of 2020, when COVID was here, we had the opportunity to collaborate together in a project called the Asian Women Leadership Program. And we found that we sort of kindred spirits. We have common areas of intersection.
Ramesh, I can't wait to have this conversation with you. I'm an advocate and a spirited campaigner for women's empowerment and gender equity. I typically work with women professionals and entrepreneurs in the tourism and hospitality industry who face challenges, accessing economic opportunities, resources, networks, as well as intelligence. I help to harness their growth potentials of these women through capacity building, education, as well as through their social capital. That's what I'm passionate about. And because I grew up, I would say, from the tourism and hospitality industry, I focus on women in this industry because 70% of our industry is driven by women. But the trajectory of women sadly has not been to our expectations. So I would say in the last couple of years, my work has been centering on women.
Well, it looks like you've picked an important area because I assume women are probably 80% of the workforce in tourism and hospitality. Would that be accurate?
Depending on which destinations we are talking about, here you can say that's the average of 60 to 80% on different parts of the world.
Right. I want to make this conversation a little bit more personal. How do you think people would describe you, especially family members and close friends?
The very first word that people would describe me is as a social butterfly. I love being with people. I think people bring the best out of me, and I love networking. I spend a large amount of my time in personal and professional networking, and I think I have a natural curiosity to find out about people. I gravitate towards that. So whether it is at home, family, or in a business environment, people always see me networking, so they call me a social butterfly. The second word that people will describe me as would be the word positive. Regardless of whatever the challenge, difficulties, or negativity around me, I'm a very positive person in every little thing that I look at. I think it's a frame of mind that I have, that everything is for a reason, and there's a good reason behind what and why something is happening. And I think that's a positive energy that draws positive people towards me, positive manifestations and positive events. So yeah, I think that's something that defines me quite clearly.
There have been many times when I needed to connect to someone or to do something, and you tend to be my go-to person. You have this positivity, but also you're very generous with your network. if there's something that I needed and I dropped you a message, you would give me at least 3 people to go and check out or have a conversation with.
One of the important things that I have discovered in my journey is that there have been a lot of people who are very generous with their time, wisdom, and their resources to me. Otherwise, I would not have grown through this path. Many people, including yourself, have been very, very generous. There have been guardian angels who have helped me around. Once we are receptive to that generosity in people, we also learn that it is important for us to also pay it forward, especially women. I think we should have the capacity to receive generously and to give generously so that as a tribe, we can thrive, I would say, flourish.
I love also reciprocity. Maybe it's a learned phenomena because you experience it and then you start to reciprocate. Maybe some people were born that way, but I definitely think that if more of us practiced it, the world will be such an easier place because there's something that we can always contribute to another person. How do you define success and failure in life?
That's a very deep question. Let me be specific to my life. The definition of success has evolved. In the earlier part of my life, it's really about my socio-economic trajectory. I strived and I tried my very best to climb the corporate ladder to learn, and a lot to do with moving up and learning the ropes of the industry. And to a point that, yes, I was very successful in picking up all that. At a certain stage in my life, success was defined by my own self-growth, whether it's educating myself further or certifying myself further or learning from the gurus around, whether it is corporate gurus or spiritual gurus and all. When I saw myself growing, to me, that was important definition of my success. I've arrived at a point, particularly, I would say that in the smack of COVID, when the first tool was a challenge to me, I learned to relook at the definition of success. And I realized what success was. If I could live a life true to myself, I would define it as success. I don't have to do things which is an expectation of people, expectation of my industry or expectation of my organization or even the country that we live in. But if I can truly, truly live a life that is true to myself and what I really want at this point in my life, then I think that would be success. Not that I've arrived there, Ramesh. I think I'm on my journey towards there.
Mm-hmm. I love the way you've sort of decoded success as an evolution and how you have actually linked it back to your life stages. And the last part, living your life, being true to yourself and how that discovery was made in the midst of COVID and the courage that it will take to actually stay true on that course. It's a good time to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and your entrepreneurial experience as well as your own business. The way I look at entrepreneurship is that it's a necessary way of life, especially in this era of disruption. If people can take on being entrepreneurial or have an entrepreneurial mindset, whether they are a householder or they are a student or they're an activist or even someone who's working in a corporate environment, that allows them to be effective in the face of disruption as well as change. And then, of course, there are some of us who may actually be excited about starting a business and running it. And that's another game altogether. You've been an academic and started a consultancy firm. In the midst of COVID, you've then co-founded another organization and a collaboration that we did with Asian Women's Leadership Program. So just share with us, what is your entrepreneurial mindset?
I think the entrepreneurial mindset that I have gave me the freedom to do what I wanted. I had worked for an organization for 2 decades. You had to be defined by somebody, what are your milestones, what you have to do, what you can do, what you cannot do. There were limitations and barriers. But after 2 decades of working, I arrived at a point where I had personal inspirations. I wanted to make an impact on community and societies. And I felt that working within an organization is not going to allow me to do that. I find it very stifling. To be free and spirited, to me, I felt that I need to move in the direction of being an entrepreneur. The freedom is what I really wanted, to experiment and no judgments other than myself judging. So that's where I started. Again, like I said, the generosity of people around. The moment you have a goal that is so authentic, a goal that is so focused on not you, but to uplifting society for the goodness of the community, somehow I feel that like-minded people will start to gravitate towards you and support your entrepreneurial journey. So I couldn't have done this by myself, I would say. The moment I start an idea, like I said to yourself and Pearl, I said, can we do this? And you guys, yeah, definitely, let's do this. And I find similar-minded entrepreneurs saying, yes, let me support you. I go on LinkedIn in the smack of COVID and I said, let's do something for women in tourism in Asia. And another entrepreneur, Zeno, she's in India. And she said, yeah, let me help you with this. And I found other entrepreneurs say, come, let's do this together. All right. So my ideas and my businesses are not mine, I would say. It's actually a collaboration and a partnership of many like-minded entrepreneurs. And the World Women Tourism specifically, I want to share, it was not even my original idea. I've always wanted to do work with women. I didn't even start the company, but two men came along. They saw me speak on a United Nations stage. And they came to me and they said, Nisha, I've got an idea. Will you want to listen to it? I said, yes, why not? And they said, look at this. Women make up more than 70% of our labor force, but lots of work can be done. Let's start this company. You front it. We support you. Would you like to start World Women Tourism? And even the title, the name, everything came from two men. I think we've got to be open, be porous to ideas, whether it comes from women or men. In this situation, two men gave me the ideas of why don't you do some work for women's empowerment, particularly in Asia. And I was receiving it very wholeheartedly. And I think you need to have the guts to say, yes, I will do it, good or bad. Maybe that's positive streak in me. As an entrepreneur, you need to have that positive outlook to say, do it. And I think I've also always been someone who has got lots of determination to make things work. So challenges will be there in your journey as an entrepreneur, but you focus, you strive and persevere, and you will see the outcomes. And people who are similar to you will definitely gravitate towards you and uplift your ideas. So that is actually my entrepreneurial journey. It's not at a point where you say, oh, I've grown enough. But every day you have new ideas, new thoughts. People join your journey and your entrepreneurial journey will start to shift. And you don't have to be where you started. That willingness to say that I want to be agile, the willingness to say that it's okay, I flow with what opens up, and let's see. So entrepreneurial journey to me is a discovery.
You've actually described some of your habits that make you successful and productive as an entrepreneur. And it's definitely something that people who are looking to have a breakthrough in running a business or in adopting an entrepreneurial mindset can borrow from you. Whatever crisis that you've had, whether in your entrepreneurial journey or in academia or in your personal life, what have you learned from those crises?
I'm so bold to say that every single crisis that I have seen only opened up opportunities to me. So when we look at SARS, I remember where the whole travel trade was in the pits, right? And we were so worried. We had an exposure during SARS. Our industry was so badly hit, but that opportunity was a breakthrough for me because that started my training journey. If not for SARS, I would not perhaps gone into training. And today, that is one of my fortes, right? In Singapore, the government supported it. At a certain point in my personal journey where I had a crisis where I couldn't work personally due to health reasons. So that was a time I said, okay, let me just take stock of time and do my master's. And this was like decades ago. And I said, I would seize that time to do my master's. And amazingly, the moment I finished my master's and I came out, there was big opportunities for academics, meaning academics were practitioners, and they were like less than 5 in Singapore. And I was given an opportunity to go into lecturing because of that crisis. If I were to look at the current pandemic, I think that was a beautiful opportunity that came up because World Women Tourism took flight during that time. She in Tourism started, Asian Women Leadership Program started, our global webinar started, my podcast started. Everything started when I had a downtime, because if not for the crisis, I would be all over the world working from airports, wouldn't have a downtime to think through. In fact, my PhD was completed because I had the downtime during the crisis. So if, let's say, COVID-19 didn't happen, I may not have the time to sit down and finish my PhD. So I think this was, to me, in many ways, a fantastic opportunity and a blessing in some ways, that it gave me the downtime to focus on everything that was in my heart. But having said that, I want to also qualify that it's all in your mind. If you really think the crisis is bad, you'll be sitting down and moaning and groaning that it's robbed you. I lost $250,000 of project when COVID struck. I could be moping around. Well, I did to one point get into a mental downtime. I was like lost. I don't know what to do. I was at a cross point. Everything I built was gone. I was devastated. I don't know if I would ever be relevant again post-COVID. All my hard work that I did and I built up was just going to waste. So yes, my mind was in a flux. I didn't know where I was going. I had to be very open and receptive. And although I'm a coach, but I had to invite a coach into my life and say, tell me what I'm going through. Help me through this. Receive help in that crisis. And clarity came. Journaling helped me together with the coach. And then I started to see the crisis in a different light. So I think in many ways, it's not just the opportunities came, but you create your opportunities in every crisis. If I were to reflect back, I wouldn't say that a crisis just gave me the opportunity, but I think at every crisis, I started to evaluate my life. I started to accept that I was going through a difficult period, but what do I want to do about that? I sought help from different people at different point of my life to help me through that period. And yes, I would say every crisis was a major breakthrough for me. And I wouldn't have come to this point if not for the crisis in my life.
I really love the way you've described it, because I'm completing my book on crisis resilience, and I have a 4-step method for people to get out of a crisis. First, being self-aware that we are in a crisis or we have a setback. And you've described how when you start to experience those emotions, whether it's a frustration or being lost or being devastated, that's the first moment that we can be aware that there is something that's going on, that it's uncomfortable or is uncertain. And then, of course, the piece that you talked about, which is the second step, in terms of acceptance, was when you went with, okay, now what do I do? Had you reach out to that coach, take on reflection through journaling, and to bring greater clarity to what was really happening, so that you could own the next step of actions that you wanted to take towards that new future, which I call as Step 3, and Step 4 is actually self-actualization, where you get to this new you. And that opportunity all came about, that new you, because you had that original setback or the crisis.
So you gave me a framework for the way that I came out of my crisis and became resilient. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, that is my intention in developing this 4-step crisis-ready mindset framework. It is essentially to help people to think through a crisis, something we may find challenging with all the reactions going on both internally as well as externally. You know, Nisha, going back to the points that you raised about the importance of being someone who is positive or being someone who has a positive outlook, I can't agree more. And what's really clear is that you're someone who is able to reframe in that moment that setback. And it comes from an acceptance, and it's not just like you're doing some positive thinking and you're not dealing with the actual issue. you're also bringing forward that positive energy to move forward. One other thing that I wanted to ask about crisis is that if you have any advice for anyone in terms of dealing with crisis?
The first advice that I always give to people is that, yes, the crisis brings a lot of negative thoughts in our head, a lot of challenge in our mindset. Physically, you start to even feel panicky. Lots of things happen. But I think a constant awareness of yourself is very important. Being mindful of what you are going through, what's going through my head, what's going through my body. And for that, I think it really helps one to deal with a crisis. If you really have a very, very close intimacy with yourself, what you're going through. With that clarity, we begin to be a little bit more positive to say, okay, I think I can take stock of this because I know what I'm going through, and have that positive mindset to say that there's a reason why this is going on and it's going to bring an opportunity. And what would that be? So reframe the situation, redirect your energies towards thinking positively where this is going to take you to. Thirdly, I keep saying again, be very porous and be open to receiving help. There will be someone who will be your safety net. Think about who that is. Without judgments, someone who would be there to listen to what you have to say, give you a kick in the butt if they think you deserve it at that point, and shake you up and say, wake up. Who is that one person? You don't seek them when you arrive at a crisis. You seek them before you come to a crisis point in your life, and be there closely connected with this person because you need them one day. And you don't go to them when the crisis happens, right? So it's not your friends that you go to when you have a crisis. It's not your family that you should go to because they will be very sympathetic, empathetic, very nice, tell you what you need to hear. But sometimes you need someone to tell you what you don't want to hear and give you a kick out there and get you to wake up. Who is that safety net that you have invested in?
That's very interesting because in some ways it's counterintuitive because on the one hand, you describe it as a safety net. And at the same time, you're going to this person because they will say something that you don't like to hear or don't want to hear. And that's that exact thing that you need to hear at that moment.
That's right.
I love the way you described it. From all that you've said so far, we sort of get a sense about who you are with people and how you work with people. And maybe you could share something about your own evolution in terms of how you work with people to get the best out of people and any kind of collaboration that you do. What have you observed over the years of working in corporate as well as in academia and being an entrepreneur? How has this changed?
It's an interesting thing because I only learned this in the later part of my year, but I think I've been following this throughout my whole life. We have financial planning, right? We save money, we invest, and we plan for the future. Then we have our health plan, right? Okay, we do this, we do that, we do exercise. I don't know how many of us have got this relationship plan. Like, who do you want to invest your time with? Who you want to be surrounded by? Whose ideas do you want to hear? Who are the people who will kick you in the butt and wake you up? Who should be the one who will be lifting you up? I don't know how many of us really, really sit down and have a relationship map and a relationship plan. And maybe I was doing it very randomly, but I think all the while I've been doing it. We need to have that concerted effort to plan this. It's like certain times we need an intellectual feast to be with some people who would give you that idea, the generation of that idea who will spark you, who would wow kind of thing. And you don't want to spend time with frivolous Saturday afternoon talking about some Netflix series. Well, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I'm just saying that sometimes you want to have that intellectual feast. So who would be part of that feast? Who would sit at the table and feed you with that intellectual stimulation? I think we need to think carefully about things like that. Who are your emotional vultures that you want to minimize your association with, who would take that energy out of you or your wisdom out of you? So if we really plan quite carefully, we will be surrounded by people who will inspire you, who would uplift you, who would generously give their time and energy. They will also give you that space to do it. teach you how to do it. And therefore, you grow in that journey. So think about who you want to be, that 5 people that you want to surround yourself, because you are an average of 5 people. Think about who is it that is going to be your safety net, who will kick you and wake you up. When I say people, they don't have to be physical people. It could be people like Robin Sharma and Vishen Lakyani. Maybe you get inspired when you listen to them, all right? So they could be part of your intellectual feast too. They're human, they're people out there, but they don't have to be next to you. They could be digitally next to you and you are listening into them. So one fine day, once you listen to these people, you become familiar with these people. Once you meet them, my God, it can open the doors. It has happened to me. I can go up to them and say, I've learned enough about you and I would like to get to know you. And that opens doors. But if you don't invest your time in getting to know these people well enough, when you see them, you get fearful, you get intimidated because that familiarity is not there. But when you are familiar with your work, you're familiar with your thought process, you understand that they're human. And it allows you and gives you the confidence to go up to them and say, I want to get to know you better. I want to be in your proximity. It's a lesson that I have learned to really put it into a perspective, what I've always been doing. And today, I think I've got more clarity. That's what brought me to my journey with people.
And that's so clear about you, Nisha, that you might not have your relationship plan or a map, like a formal thing, like our health plan or our financial plan, but you're definitely working from some structure. It'll be really useful for people to actually take that on. You also talk about social capital and how is it connected to this aspect of the relationship plan?
So what is social capital? Social capital is your network, people who would come together with you to elevate your trajectory, isn't it? Trajectory can be social, could be psychological, could be spiritual, could be economic, but that's what you need to invest in your social capital. I think a lot of people, especially the millennials, I find that they are so into other forms of capital, but social capital, it's amazing. It, of course, will bring you to an economic capital that you want one day. When I go for my yoga, there I am doing yoga on one mat, but I would turn around to look at somebody in the next mat and think about, how can I get to know this person? One fine day, we might have mutual interests. It could be a business venture. It could be something else. And it's so, my God, they have come into my life in a way that has been amazing. We become sometimes fantastic friends because somebody was just in the lying down on the next yoga mat. Well, I can just do my yoga and walk away like many people do. But sometimes you turn around, you invest in the person next to you. That's what mindfulness is all about. You're mindful of the person next to you rather than being so preoccupied with yourself and what you are doing. So when you're mindful of the person next to you and you give a little bit more attention to that person, amazing things can spark actually. In our busy world, we just don't do enough of that. You want to go a little spiritual, you think about Celestine prophecy, right? I mean, somebody just next to you and you just give that attention to that person because you know intuitively something is going to happen, right? But how many of us listen to that intuition and say, hey, maybe I should give that attention where I'm feeling for it? But that's where I think the spiritual part comes in, I guess.
And tell us a little bit more about that. How much of it is in your life, in your day-to-day activities?
My spiritual orientation.
Not just orientation, but, your journey, your expression of it, what you do that is spiritual for you.
I don't know when this thing actually started. Maybe I've always been spiritual. I'm not sure. But I think the awareness came when I was in Bhutan. I think sometimes you need to be in the right space at the right time with the right mind frame, maybe. And when I was in Bhutan and climbing up one of the Buddha point, and a sudden shift in awareness came to me to say that, well, I think this is my journey where I need to start thinking about what is spiritual. I just want to clarify, it's nothing religious, but it's about finding a higher meaning, a personal meaning to everything that I do, whether it's work or otherwise. It's about interrelationship with not only people, but with the environment. The word transcendence, going to a higher level with respect to meaning, the whys, it's a higher level. Sometimes I think it's beyond me to understand why I do certain things, but I'll leave it, surrender, and say, let it happen, let it happen. There's a reason why this is happening. So that shift in my inner consciousness, it's an inner journey, an inner discovery, an inner consciousness shifted when I was in Bhutan. And I gave that space and the time to think about what's going on. Furthering that journey, I think I started to then think very carefully about, if I do something, what is the meaning in it for me? What's my moonshot at the end of the day? It cannot be something just for me. At once upon a time, I used to say, I want to do work with women because I will feel the joy. No, it's not that. What's in it for them? A lot of things shifted. So I'm a trainer, I'm a speaker, I go on many, many platforms, but I have learned to say that before I open my mouth in front of an audience, I speak out there and say, it's not about my ego. Don't make me conscious about what I'm saying, because then it becomes all about me. Just give me the wisdom to say something that someone in the audience needs to hear. Allow me to say some things to the audience that is going to uplift them and help them. And believe me, Ramesh, the moment I say that to the universe and say, it's not about me, don't let it be my ego, don't let it be about me, I think I stop my fear. Of course, we get stage fright at any point in our lives. And I'll tell you, I get butterflies all the time when I step on stages or I speak. But the moment I say this out, somehow my fear just disappears. And I think that's a very spiritual action orientation, that as a professional who goes on stage, the moment I say it's not about me, it's not about my ego, please take it away and let me just say something that is going to be important to someone in the audience. Let me say things that is going to uplift and motivate people or give them something positive. I think that's something very spiritual in my work that I'm doing.
I can't agree more. And I love the way you connect to that higher consciousness in a moment, which can be about you and your significance. But then you give it away to allow yourself to become that instrument that can communicate the words and the message that is meant for people to hear and to take away those meaning for themselves.
That's right. I mean, we become mere conduits at the end of the day. So when you can actually see yourself in that way, I think that itself is very, very, very spiritual. And you find meaning in everything that you do. And I wouldn't say that it has always been the way I do my work, but I think the moment I went on that journey 7 years ago to Bhutan, I think a lot has shifted. I think different strokes for different folks. You might find it right in a speck in Singapore in a garden, maybe. For me, it was Bhutan, and it will always be the place that I started my spiritual journey.
Oh, thank you so much.
And of course, it shifted the topic of my PhD. I threw away a 60,000 word PhD out of the window, and I started a completely new topic 3 years into my journey of my PhD. And the topic was called Spirituality in Tourism Education.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Because I felt that a humanistic way of teaching is not going to do justice to the tourism industry. We are going to get people who are very much self-centered in the way tourism development, which is what has happened, the over-tourism and all that. So my PhD was all about, let's teach these students and future practitioners with a spiritual orientation, where we tell them that tourism is beyond you and I. It's about the community, it's about the ecology. Show that respect, show that love. The interrelationship and the interdependence is what is going to create a long-term sustainability. So I said, this is what our classrooms should be talking about. When we step in as educators, bring ourselves, our authenticity in and don't fake it. We are beyond everything and we start to preach. That's not the way we start to teach, because spiritual orientation is not about preaching. It's about being authentic and talking about our vulnerabilities in a classroom. I kind of defied, I would say, that the kind of focus that has been in the industry and PhDs and so forth. And I said, I'm going to do what my heart tells me to do. And this topic came up to me. I started it. And yeah, I'm so happy that I did a topic which is so aligned to my values.
Wow. It takes courage to do that. Like you described, it is also a journey. We don't have to fret if we are not there and not able to do it yet, because there will be a moment if we are open and we are listening to our inner voice, that we can use that moment to tip over and be on a journey to elevate our consciousness. Thank you for sharing about spirituality and what it means to you. So moving on, is it possible for us to live a simple life in today's world? And what would be a simple life for you?
Yeah, I think that is such a subjective thing. What is simplicity? Actually, interestingly, I've been thinking about it and talking about this the whole morning. I had done so much work in the last 20 months and made an impact and changes. And sometimes in the journey, I've been burned out in the last 20 months because of the hours I give. I am going to lead a simple life. I'm just going to go and gravitate towards Bhutan and just do nothing for 1 year. It's difficult to do nothing for 1 year, but I think I'll just do what my heart tells me to do, living a life that is true to myself. That's what I said from the beginning. So just going to a place and just looking at wellness, looking at yoga and meditation, and looking at what I could do with women out there. Don't expect too much from that work, but impacting the lives of the people and the community and my own life. So stepping back, sit back and be an observer sometimes rather than a doer. Just enjoy the being rather than the doing. I think that's simple life to me.
Wow. Well, I'm going to come and visit you in Bhutan.
You're most welcome at all times. And the moment we both come together, sometimes we might be doing more doing than
Could
right?
be a problem.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's a good way to describe it. Moving from the doing to just being. So Nisha, to sum up, how would you describe thriving or flourishing?
Yes. So again, going back to different stages, thriving and flourishing. I love the word more flourishing because we only can flourish if we are able to uplift ourselves and the people around us. You will see that. You will flourish if you look at the people around you and say, you have uplifted some people. Take a young one under your wings, groom them, grow together, and then you flourish. Take a community and see what you could do. Just a seed, right? And then you see them grow. When we did our Asian Women Leadership Program, it's just a seed. We seeded a thought. But how people picked up from there, they connected with each other. They are developing businesses, ideas amongst themselves. We don't know what we sparked in them, all right? But on hindsight, when we think about it, that's really a fantastic way of flourishing. We do what we had to do, make money where we had to make money. But the kind of satisfaction that it gives you by uplifting each other in the process, of course, as we are givers, we are also receivers. We will receive it. But to me, that is what we can do at this point where we can flourish together. Sometimes when we converse, you rethink about your perspectives. And it's nice to sometimes go into our inner journeys and recollect what we are doing, putting things into perspective. So I love the dialogue. Very beautiful questions that you have posed. And I am hopeful that it becomes a survival guide to somebody else, whatever we are going to be sharing. And I hope likewise, this would be an instrument for whoever is going to be listening in.
Exactly. That's the intention of this podcast, to give our listeners the different perspectives about life and living and coping in times of disruption. For instance, listening to others like yourself gives us the opportunity to assess our current situation and to have the courage to take on the needed new perspective and perhaps new actions.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of this journey.
Oh, we're so honored to have you. Thank you very
My
much.
pleasure.
What an interesting idea to be planning and mapping the positive relationships we need in our lives. If you've enjoyed listening to Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Nisha and find their insights useful, do follow our Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast series on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. Next up, we invite you to join us in the home of a very spirited and gracious changemaker, Miss Shelley Siu, founder of the iconic Singapore Shawl, a social enterprise she started with the vision of providing employment and additional income for marginalized women.